Warning. The system has become unstable.
This whole system is deeply flawed, and that's why I talk a lot about free markets and property rights, Austrian economics, and getting rid of the Fed. All these things are now up for grabs. A lot of people, especially the young people, are looking at this. So for this reason, I'm a bit encouraged by, what might come out of this. But I think we're going to go through the ringer. I think it's going to get much, much worse, and it's bad enough already. But there's no way that we can step back. The one thing I'm convinced of after having spent so much time in Washington is that this will not be a gradual recovery from this disaster that we have. We're not going to elect enough people and enough courage to vote the right way, and there's too much demagoguing and too much misunderstanding that people would revolt. But the collapse will come, it's going to hit the dollar, and then we're going to have our opportunity. So the more people who are protected intellectually as well as financially, the better off we'll be in rebuilding what we'll have, what we'll need to do in the near future.
Buckle your seatbelt. It's time for another episode of the Prepper Recon Podcast. Whether it's a grid down situation or just a temporary power outage from a storm, a sun oven will allow you to harness the power of the sun. Not only will you conserve resources, you'll maintain operational security by not sending up smoke. You can cook or dehydrate just about anything, including bread, muffins, roasts, jerky, beans, rice, and so much more. Go to sunoven.com/PrepperRecon for an $80 discount off a deluxe package.
KDArmor.com is your one-stop shop for the most affordable body armor, period. With packages starting at $169.99 and free shipping on every order. KD offers soft armor and rifle threat rated armor up to level 4. Go to KDArmor.com and get your body armor today while you still can. Mention this ad and receive a free tactical scarf for a limited time with any body armor package. That's CATIarmor.com.
Today's guest is artist John McNaughton. John creates paintings that reflect the overwhelming challenges facing America. I know most of the listeners out there usually get the show via MP3. You usually listen to it on your podcast or in your car or whatever. But I would really encourage you, if it's at all possible, today check out the YouTube edition of today's show so you can see some of John's work, because we'll have that in the slideshow incorporated in the YouTube. So and otherwise, if you can't, if you're listening in your car, great. You'll still get a lot of great. You'll hear the great conversation that we have, and then check out John's website when you get home today, and that's johnmcnaughton.com, and you can check out his paintings and you'll know what we were talking about. But I know a lot of you out there listening have already seen his paintings because they're very, very popular, and it's going to be a great show. So, John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. It's great to have you on. Now, when did you decide to start painting political art?
That was back in 2008, right? It was during the election when Obama and McCain were at it. Before then, I was mostly doing landscapes and religious paintings, but I specifically remember coming back to my studio one day after I found out that John McCain had won the nomination, and I was pretty discouraged, knowing the kind of Republican that he was, and just the whole thing that was going on in the country, and that's when I got the inspiration for the One Nation Under God painting. That was the first one I'd ever done that was anything like that. And it was just opened the doors to everything else.
And then One Nation Under God, it's got a depiction of Jesus, and he's holding the Constitution. Is that right?
Yeah. It's a pretty controversial image. And when I was given that idea, my concept was that I believe the Constitution is divinely inspired, and that the country was at a crossroads, kind of a tipping point. And if you look at the picture, you see behind Christ are all the different patriots of the past who have, fought and done their part to defend the Constitution and uphold it. And in the foreground, you have the living Americans, and there's different people that represent different types of Americans, and they're divided. On one side, you have those that believe in liberty and what the Constitution stands for, and the other side are those that are more confused. And so I wasn't trying to say that we should be a theocracy as much as I was saying that the Constitution is really what has given our country the liberty that it's had all this time. But that's been a confused painting ever since I painted it in terms of the reaction of the public. Some people love it. Some people, it's like their most hated painting of all time.
Now, another one that's probably you've probably gotten a lot of controversial comments about it, I'm sure as well, is The Forgotten Man. And there you just kind of have this everyday Joe, and he's sitting on a park bench, and he's just very discouraged. And you've got all of the founders, you've got Washington and Jefferson, and they're sort of pleading, hey, pay attention to this guy. And then over on the side is Obama and what looks to be like a lot of his major influences on the other side. And he's just sort of got his arms crossed and his chin in the air with very, very little to no regard for this man.
Yeah,
can you explain that one?
That's a good description. That painting was inspired when they passed the Affordable Care Act back in 2010. And at the time, I'd been watching Obama since his election, and I was really concerned about everything. But when they pushed through that Affordable Care Act, I could see the writing on the wall. This guy has no respect for the Constitution, and just railroaded that law right through without the American public's consent. It just went, through Congress and the Senate. The whole thing just really bothered me. So, so I had that man on the bench representing all Americans, that may not have the same opportunities in the future because of what's happened. And I wasn't necessarily making the point that Obama is the only one, because many presidents have done things that are unconstitutional. And so that's why I have, some of them, including Bush, standing right behind the president there, President Obama. And he does have that kind of look on his face. He's looking off into the distance along with many of the other presidents, completely ignoring the forgotten man, as if, they're accomplishing what it is that whatever their mission is, what they want to do. And, if you look closely in the painting, there's trash blowing along and on the ground, and even dollar bills like they're nothing. They're just blowing around. And there he is standing on the Constitution. So it's been an interest. The reaction to that painting has been amazing, because there are a lot of people who, have been really frustrated with what the federal government's doing. They understand the painting immediately. Although there are some people that they see the painting and their first reaction is, oh, this is racist. Look at all these white presidents that are pointing at Obama. And so I just have to kind of chuckle that there's so many confused people out there that really don't understand what these issues are about.
And then did you get any questions on why the guy's so bummed out if his health care is affordable now?
Well, I didn't. When I did the painting, I didn't specify just the Affordable Care Act. At that time, it was still kind of up in the air as to what would happen. But the painting has become more true every day since I painted it, especially now that we've seen the fallout of this Obamacare and how it's just fallen to pieces. They can't even get it really launched effectively. And so the painting has just become more true all the time. When I first painted it, I had a lot of fallback on that one too. How dare you say that? And it was before the Supreme Court even, made their case for legitimizing Obamacare and saying that it was a tax. So the whole thing, I'm just amazed. I sit back and watch the way these paintings, they go out and the people react, and then they just become more true over time. And so it's been an interesting thing to watch that happen.
Yeah, because I felt exactly like that guy when I saw my premium increase, because it basically tripled thanks to the Affordable Care Act.
Oh, yeah. And it's interesting. I had an art gallery out here where I live in Utah, and I just closed it about a year ago. But I used to have people that would come in, and I had these large replicas of the painting in the gallery. And, people out here, for the most part, pretty conservative. Most everyone agreed with my sentiments, but I'd get a few people every month that would come by, and they'd yell and say a few things. But I remember one time there was this black fellow who came in, and he was nice, but he wanted to talk to me about the painting. He says, "Why would you paint this? This is so racist." And I said, "Why do you think it's racist?" And he says, "Well, you got a white guy on the bench. You know, why don't you have a black guy? Why don't you have a Latino? And I said to him, well, if I had a black man, obviously the painting would be about race, and everybody would want to ask me that. You know, if I had a Latino, it would be about illegal immigration. You know, and I guess I could have had an entire family, but what do you want me to make it, a mixed race family? And then he thought for a second. And he says, well, you should have made them maybe rainbow colors or something. You know, and I just
Then it would have been about gay marriage.
yeah, that it would have changed it about that. So, you know, as an artist, I try to find symbols that, for me, represent the ideas I'm trying to show people. And the painting is not about race at all, but people like to turn it into that. In fact, Stephen Colbert, you know, the comedian out in New York, he did an entire segment on his show about my paintings. And when he got to the Forgotten Man painting, he made some funny quips about it. It made me laugh too, but I thought, you know, these people just don't get it.
Now, the guy that walked in your shop, it would have been great if you would have had like a little art supplies shelf over on the side, and you could have sold him some brushes and some tubes of paint and told him to go paint his own dang picture, right?
Yeah, there's times when I've said that. This guy was nice. You know, we shook hands when we left. I try to do that. You know, I don't like to get in people's face and yell at them. I'm not that kind of person. I prefer to first find a common ground if that's possible, and then I usually try to get them to articulate what it is they believe, and then I start asking questions. And that, I find that to be a really good way to engage people that are on the other side. Although there's some people that just want to scream and yell, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know, the interesting thing about a painting is you know, there's some things that you can communicate with visual images better than you can just with the written word. And when I put these pictures together, you know, people can't ignore them. They have to look at it. They have to consider it. And I think that it opens up a thought process with people that they wouldn't have otherwise, and engages conversation. And so that's kind of what I try to do as an artist, is to get people to understand my point of view, to communicate ideas. And it's been pretty effective so far.
Now let's talk about the empowered man. It looks like the same guy from the bench that was on the Forgotten Man, but now he's standing up and he doesn't look quite so depressed. And he looks like he's got a little glimmer of hope in his eye, and he's got the Constitution, and he's holding it up, and he's saying, you know, I don't really have to sit down and take all of this. You know, according to this document in my hand, I'm the one that's in charge.
You're doing a good job explaining these paintings. That's exactly what the painting's about. You know, it's kind of the part two to the Forgotten Man, and he has hope now. And as he stands up, you know, he's holding that Constitution up really high, and he's clutching the dollar bills in the other hand to represent that he's trying to save the value of the dollar, which I don't think is going to happen. We're on a downward cycle there. But it's an effort to try to, you know, take back our country. So the message is about hope. And if you look behind him, you know, the way the different presidents are reacting, it gives you sort of my take on what's happening, or what has happened in the country. You know, Obama's got to look like, oh crap. So I guess it's my dream of how things could go if Americans really got up off their bench and tried to do something about it.
Yeah, but it would take a mass awakening, and it would take every single conservative and liberty-minded individual and Constitution lover to get up, turn off the TV, get involved in politics at the local level, get involved in debating the people that are sort of on the fence, that don't know, that basically vote for Obama because they really thought they were going to get free health care, and start engaging people. And I just don't see it. I don't see that level of involvement.
I mean, things were starting a little bit when they had the Tea Party, but that's kind of lost some of its momentum, unfortunately. And the left is really good at demonizing their opponents, and conservatives, I think, a lot of them, unfortunately, they tend to be a little more gentle, whereas the left goes for the throat. I'm seeing more conservatives becoming more aggressive and, actually standing up and insisting on being heard, and that's a good thing. But as a whole, we need to be a lot more involved and forthright and less afraid to get, into the heat of things if we want to change this country. And I'm just afraid it's going to take a major event to cause that to happen. And I just hope it's not the kind of event that would cause the country to move backwards instead of forwards. I don't know.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. I've personally been buying gold and silver from JM Bullion for over 2 years. They offer the best prices over spot that I can find, and I've never had a problem with an order. If you're looking to trade in some of your fiat paper for real money, check out jmbullion.com today.
When disaster strikes, it's too late to prepare. PrepperRecon.com offers MOLLE-compatible individual first aid kits for your home, auto, or bug-out bag. These kits have everything you need to address a traumatic injury, including an Israeli battle dressing, quick clot, EMT shears, suture kit, Steri-strips, tourniquet, ACS chest seal, tough strip bandages, gauze, and so much more. $89 includes shipping. To buy your individual first aid kit, go to PrepperRecon.com and click the store tab at the top of the homepage. Order today before it's too late.
While I was saying that we don't see that much involvement from the conservatives on an individual level, liberals are very, very involved, and they'll you think about Obama's original job, a community organizer, and they're good at that stuff, and they're good at getting the people riled up and whipped up, and even though it's a lot of sort of circusry, I guess we would call it. And then there's a lot of them that Soros actually funds protests. He'll find people that don't have anything to do, and through his organizations will pay them to go hold a sign somewhere. But it to the rest of the liberals, they'll say, it's kind of the cool popular thing to go out there and hold a sign now, because they see 3 or 4 other people out there that have been paid to do it. So, then they'll want to get on the bandwagon. So it sort of starts the snowball effect. So they're very, very good at that kind of stuff. And while I would hope that we could do it without such nefarious methods, I would hope that we could start seeing conservatives get that involved as well. Now, in Wake Up America, it's the same guy that was on the bench. And now he's got his hacksaw out, and he's cutting away. And in the background, Obama's being glorified as the savior of America that he thinks he is. Can you explain what those chains represent?
Well, the chains are the debt that has basically trapped every American here. Every man, woman, and child in this country is in bondage, and they don't realize it. And it's getting worse and worse. He's trying to cut that chain with a hacksaw, which is pretty ridiculous, but he's doing the best he can. And he's the only one that's really trying in the painting to do anything about it. But if you look closely, there's these locks and keys hidden in the painting that represent different things that we can do as individuals to try to break the chains that bind every American. If you look closely, you'll notice Obama standing on a pile of money, and there's money that's falling down from above, and all these people are hoarding the money. They're grabbing it. They got it in their hands and their pockets. That just represents that's kind of the driving force of politics in America today. There's a lot of subtleties in the painting. It's kind of like the setting is around a political convention. You've got the banners, you got people with signs, a lot of stuff going on in that painting. A lot of symbols. I like to do that in my paintings. I like people to, as they look into it more and more, they find new things, and it really gets them thinking. I even put myself in that painting. There's a guy holding the sign in the background, and it says, "I want my country back." And if you look closely, that's me. So. Yeah, I kind of find a way to get myself into a lot of these pictures.
And now we've got a debt ticker on prepperrecon.com, and we've just passed the $18 trillion mark recently in the past couple of months. What happens to the economy if that's not turned around?
Well, you're going to see a collapse eventually. I mean, we're so deep in debt, and also the debt that is building that for Social Security and Medicaid. Uh, that can't even be. We can't even wrap our heads around that. And it's not going to take very much to bring this house of cards coming down, and a lot of people are getting nervous about where we're headed in that direction in terms of the value of the dollar and what Russia and China are doing to try to destabilize that. The Federal Reserve. I mean, there's just so much that could happen quickly, and our lives could change overnight. I mean, I painted that picture before the 2012 election, and one of the keys in the painting was to vote out Obama, and that didn't happen. So we're like a runaway bus right now. I'm just afraid where this bus is headed.
And as a painter, if you had to paint that picture of what America looks like after this collapse, would that painting look more like the Great Depression, a zombie apocalypse, or Red Dawn, where basically we've just got foreign invaders coming in and taking us over because now we can't really fund our military anymore?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I did a painting last fall called The Angel of Liberty, based on a supposedly truthful vision that that George Washington had in Valley Forge. I don't know if it's true or not, but because they can't really prove it. But it's very interesting, if anything, an allegory of what could happen. And I painted that picture that's kind of apocalyptic of where the country's headed. And the Angel of Liberty is really the only hope to save America. And so that's one I did. It's kind of both sad and encouraging at the same time, if you look at the painting.
And back to Wake Up America, the chains represent the debt. Now he's got a hacksaw, and so he's found some way to free himself with that. Is the hacksaw, does that represent getting away from consumerism and just living a more frugal lifestyle and living within your means and trying to save? Or does that represent like gold and silver, trying to get away from the failed monetary system? Tell us what you think those tools could be to free ourselves from that type of debt.
Well, that could mean a lot of things. My thought as I was painting that was that the guy was waking up to the reality, and he's desperately trying to break free, but he doesn't really know the best way to do that. And if you really search and look at the painting, there's the 6 keys that are hidden throughout the painting that unlocks the chains. And so the painting is about waking up, really, and taking steps to unlock ourselves. One of the interesting symbols in the bottom right corner of the painting is you see this rooster that's just kind of just walking just to the bottom right of the man with the chains.
There's roosters in a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, this roosters is a symbol that it's time to wake up. And and it goes even deeper than that. I often combine religious symbols with political symbols in my paintings. And the rooster, for me, that's kind of like a Christian symbol. You remember, Peter, when he denied Christ 3 times, the cock crowed. He went and he wept bitterly when he realized, what he had done. And so it's not only a symbol that we need to wake up, but if we don't do what we're supposed to, we're going to weep bitterly, so to speak, at the outcome of the choices that we make. Now, when I put that symbol in the painting Abomination, it's right there on the podium next to the rooster's right there next to Obama as he's given a speech or what have you. And in that case, the rooster represented that famous quote from Reverend Wright when he said that the the rooster's coming home to roost, and he said a bunch of other things too. But it is a sign that we need to wake up.
Wow. Now, speaking of abomination, that's filled with symbolism. Can you tell us what some of those symbols are in that painting?
Oh, that painting's loaded. That painting has I purposefully wanted it to feel like it was absolute chaos surrounding Obama. And so I put a symbol to represent every crazy thing that's happened in his presidency up until the time I painted it, which was about probably August. It was right before the Benghazi is when I finished it. Otherwise, there'd be a reference to Benghazi in that painting. So it's roughly the first half of his presidency. And so you've got Obama up there at his pulpit, and around him are all kinds of crazy things. Like you have the guy with the shovel, to represent shovel-ready jobs that never happened. You've got a reference to Fast and Furious, to Obamacare, to what he's done with illegal immigration, the Fort Hood massacre, the way he's handled things to do with Israel and Iran. I mean, there's tons of stuff in that painting. You could get lost looking at that painting.
And then let's talk about liberalism as a disease. In that picture, you've got all of the big liberal figures of our day quarantined off on an island with basically like caution tape all the way around them and, warning signs. Now, in that picture, you've depicted Nancy Pelosi and Satan as being two separate beings. We might have to agree to disagree on that one. But other than that, you've basically painted my fantasy world. Now, have we hit a point in America where liberals and conservatives have such different ideas that we really just can't even coexist as a singular nation anymore? Do you think we need a two-state solution, basically, like you've sort of depicted in that painting?
Well, the painting liberalism is a disease. It was meant to be a satire. Obviously, I don't want to, quarantine them on an island. That would be murder. So I don't want to do that. But I do kind of feel like it's a disease, like a mental disease, And I think I don't know if it was Michael Savage or somebody referred to it as that. So that was the first painting I did that was kind of an inside joke, having them quarantined. Fact is, I actually have liberal friends, and they are kind of set in their ways. But if you have a logical conversation with them, often you can find common ground. The thing is, a lot of them have this this attitude that no matter what, they can't reason with a conservative. So. I usually have to take the route of being a conservative libertarian to find that common ground with them. And I am, I'm kind of frustrated with what the GOP has done. Not major frustrated. I used to be a diehard Republican. Now I'm very much all about liberty, wherever that takes me. So I'll have these conversations with my liberal friends. And there's some things we agree to disagree, and there's other things that they can't deny that it's truthful, that that both parties are guilty. A lot of the things the liberals talk about is the government taking advantage of the people, and stuff like that. Well, let me tell you what, the Democrats do that as much or more than anything that I've ever seen. Look at all the cronyism going on in Washington today, and that's what they accused Bush of doing, and that's what they accused of driving the Gulf War. Well, I'll tell you what, it's going on now too. The government is a runaway bus. And so I try to find, where I can, common ground with these people. And I try to point out the things that are ridiculous. And that painting, Liberalism as a Disease, really focuses on what's ridiculous about liberalism. And so on my website, when you put your cursor on each person, it kind of mentions what they've done and what they stand for, and some of the ridiculous laws that liberals push through, and that's kind of what the painting's about.
Yeah, and you're right. And Rand Paul, he's done a really good job of co-opting some of his liberal colleagues in fighting against the Patriot Act and the massive NSA data collection, which, there's a whole lot of Lindsey Graham's out there and George Bush's and God forbid we get another Bush in the White House, and to bring us any more patriotic legislation, because it's about as patriotic as the affordable health care is affordable.
Yeah, I agree with you. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, if either Hillary or Jeb Bush gets in there, we're probably going to be in some serious trouble.
Certainly. Now, but you said if you stuck them all on an island together, that would be murder. But if you separate a parasite from its host, is that considered murder when it dies?
Good point. To consider that.
Now, in Stand Your Ground, you've got a patriot standing with a flag and an AR-15. Liberals will always tell us that we don't need an AR-15 to hunt deer. Is that what the Second Amendment is for? It's for deer hunting?
Oh, no. That painting just flies in the face of everything liberals believe in. I got that idea. I had a guy that lived near me who I've wanted to use in a painting for a long time. I mean, that's the guy in the picture. I mean, he's totally like superhero looking with his muscles and just a serious American, all-American looking guy, and I got this idea, for Stand Your Ground. And I posed him with the AR-15, the American flag, and the concept was, Americans have the right to defend themselves from anything and anybody that's going to try to steal their liberty, and this guy is not crazy. I mean, this guy is well trained, he's educated, he knows how to use a weapon, and he's here to protect you and protect me and protect our rights. And we need more of that in America, And so it's a very provocative painting. It looks, to some people, they would see that and go, that's just over the top. Well, pretty much all my paintings are over the top when it comes to these political. And if it gets people thinking and talking, then I think I've accomplished what I wanted. So that painting did what it was meant to do.
Yeah, when I look at that guy in Stand Your Ground, it looks like somebody that doesn't look at the Second Amendment as a right. It looks like somebody that sees the Second Amendment as a responsibility that was placed on his shoulders by his forefathers that said, you know what, we're going to sacrifice our blood, our treasure, and everything that we have to give you this freedom. And now we're going to give it to you, but now you're the custodian of this freedom, and it doesn't come without any responsibility. And one of those responsibility is going to be that a well-regulated militia is required for the security of a free state, and you need to be well trained, and you need to understand firearms, and you need to be the one that's going to stand on the wall and protect that. And I know a lot of people think that the way to do that is through military service, and I'm very, very appreciative of all the people that do that through military service. But then there's also, the Second Amendment says militia, and a lot of states have state militias, and I think that that's another great way to serve. So, John, I think it's fantastic the way that you're using your talents to bring awareness to the issues that are destroying our country and stealing our freedom. Can you tell folks where they can go to look at more of your work and if they want to purchase prints?
Well, you mentioned the website, johnmcnaughton.com, but I do have a Facebook page where I interact with a lot of people and kind of keep updated on what I'm doing. Usually when I have a new painting come out, that's where I post it. It's just under John McNaughton on Facebook. I've got a new painting I'll be releasing probably in 2 or 3 weeks. It's going to be a major release. It's called The Separation of Church and State. And I'll be discussing what that's all about. So that'll be on there too.
Very cool. Well, we're looking forward to that. I'm sure that you're gonna nail that one just as well as you have everything else, because there's a couple of different schools of thought on what separation of church and state mean, isn't there?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, people are like, "How can you debate that?" And like I've said before, I don't believe in a theocracy, but I believe that what we've done in our country over the last 100 years has pretty much made a joke out of how we define the separation of church and state, in my opinion. So it'll be an interesting painting.
John, thanks again for making time to come on the show.
Thanks, Mark. Good to be here.
In the Days of Noah, Book 2, Persecution by best-selling author Mark Goodwin. A globalist conspiracy transpires by way of a false flag attack against America's energy infrastructure. Noah and Cassandra Parker witness a complete economic meltdown, which is intentionally triggered by the event. The assault is blamed on patriots and Christians who are rounded up into detention centers across the country. Noah and his friends must take action to prepare for the meltdown and defend against the totalitarian regime, which is gunning for their freedom and, quite possibly, their very lives. Get your copy of The Days of Noah, Book 2, Persecution for Kindle, paperback or audio edition at Amazon.com today.